folks. Welcome to Paranormal Roundtable. I'm your host, Josh Turner, and we are live. This is a live stream. Somebody asked me the other day, they were like, what's the difference between the with a 1 hour live stream with the audio only and the 3 hour live stream with the visual and the audio? And I said they're not both live. I had to explain to this individual that one is an actual live stream, which is this right here, where you see me, and then one is a pre-recorded episode, a 1 hour episode that also goes on to like 14 other platforms. So for those who didn't know that, that's the deal. That's the deal. There's two different things. You have a live stream, which is this. You see me right here. It usually goes about 2 to 3 hours at least, sometimes longer or a little bit shorter. And then there is a podcast episode that actually comes out on YouTube also, which is an hour. So those are the differences. That's what you get. That's the difference right there. Bill's kind of making me, the OCD in me is messing with me. So that's what this is. So welcome, everybody, to a special edition, not our normal night. We usually are on Fridays and Sundays. So we're on tonight with Paranormal Roundtable, and I'll tell you why. Because we're going to do one last push. The conference is coming up, starting Friday night. So we have tomorrow, that we'll be in Austin, and then we're going to be gone. So here's what's going to happen. We're talking about doing a stream for everybody who can't make it to the conference. We're still working on that. We did not get with our guy today. We had a lot of stuff we had to run around and do to prepare for this event, and so we're still working on trying to get that done. So that's still in the works. We're still trying to hopefully that'll be done. More than likely, it'll be something where you can just go to YouTube and then you can watch the conference. Now, a friend of mine whose name starts with the B and ends with Arton, and whose last name starts with N and ends with Unley.
I wonder who that is.
I don't know. But he shall remain nameless.
Yeah.
Like everybody.
You shall not be named.
It's got a funny story about that too. but he was like, that's a terrible idea because then people aren't going to want to come and see us. I said, dude, there's no substitute for coming to see us. I mean, coming to the conference to see us and meet us and talk with us and hang out with us and have a good time and getting your books signed by us. That's and Barton's going to have his books. I'm going to have my books. I was on the phone today with Ken and Lyle. Just a bunch of people, man. Ron Moorhead, I was talking to him earlier today. I was talking to Adam Davies. I was talking to Christopher Garitano. Everybody pray for Sibylla Irwin. Her mother is in the hospital, which as we're speaking, like, here, do me a favor, message her, ask her how she's doing, please. I got to tell you something, folks. This conference and everything that we're doing and the books have some really weird things associated with it. And I was talking to Ken about it today. Ken just came back from something epic. He went to go to the largest hunt for the Loch Ness Monster. And then he got to go to Boleskine Castle, which is really cool. He was in Scotland. And he came back, and we were talking about it today. He was all stoked and pumped, I've been up since 8 this morning. And I got about 4 or 5 hours of sleep and was back at it. Got to do what I got to do, man. A lot of weird things have happened. It's almost like the forces of darkness are trying to conspire against us to keep us from having this conference. There have been people who have been openly critical of me and trying to stop this conference, and they have done everything in their power by politicking and going from person to person. Not mentioning any names, but there have been several people who they're so mad. They're so angry that this is happening. They're so PO'd that we are bringing people together and that we're doing this. and they're just very upset. They're very angry people. The death threats continue. You know, it's like I looked this one guy up. He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna kill you." And I look him up, and he's like on an oxygen tank, and I'm like, "Are you gonna bring that with you?" I'm not trying to be funny, but glass houses. I get it with the sin and all that. How are you gonna do this when you're in a wheelchair and an oxygen tank? When you're in that bad a shape, you should probably be thinking about your exit that's coming up, not killing me. I am not worth you going to hell for, sir. And I'm being dead serious. Prayers for these individuals. These people who are threatening us and saying all this crap and talking about how crazy we are and all this other junk. Dude, pray for these people. Please, I am appealing to you to pray for all these people. They need prayer. They need help. They're demonically oppressed. Anthony, we've talked about this. Some of these people, I think that they're demonically oppressed.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, like it's very human to want to respond to some people with anger, and hatred even, but these people are the people who need prayer the most. I mean, like if you think about the people who Christ came and kept with whom he kept company, they were people who needed his help and patience the most.
Absolutely. And we're not comparing ourselves to Jesus. What we're saying is
it's easier said than done to show kindness.
Yeah, it's compassion. I had a guy today. Somebody had said, well, I'm not going to go to the conference with that guy, and then and then another person right after that said that. So I was like thinking maybe that they conspired on it. And so I had to talk with this guy, and he's going to be there. He's not. We weren't best friends or anything, but I mean, I was like, I'm not going to let people tell me who can be and who can go and who can't. It's not up to you. It's up to us. And so if the guy acts right and doesn't do anything, as far as I'm concerned, I forgive and forget. I don't care. I don't. Life's too short for us to stay angry. There's somebody that's going to be on the panel, and we weren't best friends last year. He said some things after I got back from the conference, but you know what? We prayed together, we talked, we squashed it. We haven't had a bad word between us now. He calls me a brother, and I call him a brother, and we let it go. We forgive, we forget, we move on. That's how it's supposed to be. If every time something happens with somebody, you hold a grudge, guess what? You are not going to get very far in this world. I'm going to tell you right now, because every time somebody has a crossword with you, if you write them off, which I know people who do that. Who do that. The minute that somebody says something they don't like, they don't ever talk to that person again. And they end up being later in their life some of the loneliest people on earth, and they can't figure out why. They're like, well, I'm just tired of people's crap. Well, let me tell you something. People, they're crap. They do a lot of crap. I've had to take it my whole life. If I can endure it, so can you. If I can forgive, so can you. If Jesus can forgive, so can you. Okay? It's that simple. We're going to tell some stories tonight, and I had so many. And I told Anthony, I was like, you know what? We're not really doing a whole lot. We're having to eat out because we don't want to buy some food and like it go bad while we're gone, because we're gonna have somebody that's there, but they're not interested in our food in our fridge. So I just told them, I said, you know what? We'll just pay you. You can go and eat what you want, and that's fine while we're gone, because we'll be gone for like 4 or 5 days. So we have to have a house sitter or whatever. And I just thought, just pay them. They want to go eat, they can. They don't, why leave them our food to take care of,
Yeah.
And the shoe is really bothering me. I haven't put these shoes on in a while, and I saw them sitting there, and I was like, I want to wear those. And I put them on, and I'm like, now they're going to bother me. But, here's the thing. We're all just people. We all are just people. We are people, and we're all God's children, and we got to get along. We all got to live on this rock together. But you know what? One of the things I want to talk about tonight is people have asked me and asked me and asked me where I stand with the UAP thing, and I have told people multiple times that I have differing views depending on what the situation is. So I had somebody ask me about that, and they started emailing me back and forth. And I told her, I said, look, I said, if it's doing something to me, like I personally will put my faith in God. I don't know what you do. And she says, well, I don't believe, I respect that you do, but I don't believe like that. She says, I've been being abducted since I was 12, that she can remember. She's now 32. That's 20 years of abductions. And I said, maybe next time it happens, you should try. And I offered to pray with her. She's like, nope. And then about, say, 3 or 4 days later, she messages me and she says, it's happened again. And I told her, I said, you need to try something different. But she had an incredible story to tell. And I was all ears on this one. When she went through her last abduction, and we're going to start with this one, okay? First of all, we got prtpodcast.com, patreon.com/prtpodcast. You guys know the drill. Sign up for the Patreon, and you get a swag bag, $10. It takes you, 2 months, $20. You get it instantly, 20, 30, 40, 50. Difference is 30 gets you a bigger swag bag, and then 40 gets you an even bigger one, and then 50 is so on and so forth. And once you get into that $40 tier, you get one of my books. If you get $50 tier, you get both of my books. And I'll throw in a book from one of my author friends, too. So we're talking like three autograph books for a $50 tier. And we'd appreciate it if you would hang on and do it for a few months, because that really helps the show. But if you can't, you can't. I understand. But we want to get it out to you. We want to get the merchandise out to you. We want to wear our merchandise and our clothing line. We're putting out some new stuff, especially after the conference. When we return, we're going to be doing a bunch of interviews. We're going to be doing a lot of work. We have a lot of things in the chamber ready to go. I got, no lie, I got about 30-something interviews lined up that are going to happen when I get back from this conference. But I'm going to get the conference done and under our belts, another successful conference. And then when I return, we're going to be all over that. And thank you for that donation. We appreciate it. Donations aren't expected, but they're darn sure appreciated, especially right now. And so, yeah, once that happens, we're going to be doing these projects. I will be there with Daniel Jones, Christopher Jordan, and Nick Redfern, and I'm going to be going over some details with them about this UAP project we're going to be working on together, all of us. And then I'm going to be going over the plans for the ghost book. There's going to be a couple people there that are ghost hunters that I'm going to be talking to. I'm excited. The hurricane we thought was going to just completely obliterate Chris Garitano and whatever. It passed through. I mean, it did what it did, but his family, his parents were trapped, and the water has receded, and they got power back. So the airport's supposed to be open tomorrow in Tampa Bay. Here's Tampa right here. I'm representing Tampa Bay tonight because prayers for Tampa Bay. Prayers for everybody, Tallahassee, all the different cities. Prayers for Georgia, North Carolina, Florida, all the people that are affected by the hurricane. Please pray for them. Also, folks, pray for Sibylla and her mother, okay? We really need the prayers, folks. Titan says, keep doing what you're doing wonderful work. Blessings on you and yours. Now, here's what I want to do. I want to get started because I had this story to tell, okay? This woman's name is Susie. She sent me a message. She says, my son's friend, and thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Daniel, for sending her my way. She's a listener of the show. Now, she has another son that is autistic, and he has also been going through abduction scenario for a while. And she said that hers started when she was young. Her son, she's 30. Like I said, she's 32 years old. Her son is a very young man, but her son's friend, who's only 16 years old, told her about my show. Now, I don't promote young people listening to the show because they're afraid. It makes them afraid. But he told them, he's in my group on Facebook, and he's like, hey, there's a show. He goes, I listened to it on Spotify, I think.
Yeah, Spotify.
And so he says, I want you to check it out. She checked it out, and then she started listening to live streams. She says she can catch every other one, typically on Sundays, because Fridays she has to work late. She's a nurse. And sometimes what happens to her is very, very horrific. The last thing that happened to her was extremely terrifying. And so I thought, you know what, we could start with this one. We could talk about this one. She was driving home from her job on the swing shift at an ER, and she lives in Arizona. And she was driving home, and that's all you need to know about her, because I don't want anybody messing with this woman. Now, we did have somebody who came on the show, and I don't know how these people did it, but they tracked down one of our witnesses, and they pestered them on Facebook, right? And I didn't think that was very cool.
Yeah.
Folks, if you know who I'm talking about, or if you figure it out or something, or you heard them on another show, whatever, I'm asking you to respectfully, and then this person turned and gloated at me, and they were like, yeah, I found her, and I talked to him, and, you didn't even tell the whole story. And I was like, no, I didn't, because some of the stuff was a little too personal. Now, they chose to tell you that, but the fact remains, I had to explain to this individual. I told him, I said, I didn't tell them who you were. He had gone on another show and said a little bit of stuff, what he chooses to tell you, because this person was messing with him. And I told him, you don't owe anybody an explanation. You don't have to tell anybody anything about yourself. Okay. They don't need to know that, if I am told to tell people's names, sometimes I won't do that, just because I don't want people also to be like, well, I want to get my name out there, so I want you to say it. So if you tell your story to me, and I get a lot of them, I may or may not tell your story. Now, I did have an email. Wasn't there an email we were going to read?
Which one?
There was an email I thought we had agreed we were going to read.
Hang on, let me see if I can find it.
Because we were talking about it, and I wanted to get this one out there. And I got a bunch of people that sent me their stuff, and they're trying to get me to say it. I thought we had talked about it, me and you. I thought it was me and you in particular. Tony's at work tonight. He's trying to put in his hours before the conference so he don't lose nothing. Susie Jago, thank you for that donation. We appreciate it. What did she say? Arrived White Settlement today. Looking forward to another great conference. Thank you, Susie. A lot of people are showing up early out there. They want to go out and check out Fort Worth. A lot to do up there. And Lake Worth is right there. The Lake Worth monster is a cryptid, goat man, Bigfoot type thing, whatever. It's right there. Had somebody who told me today that they wanted to go out and check out the area after hours and go and see if they could see something. And I told them, I don't know. We'll see. I might be down to go. I don't know. It depends on how tired I am. Anyway, there was an email that I thought we had gone over. We were going to read it on the air, but that's all right. It's no biggie. So one of the things that I wanted to go over, was somebody who claimed they had shrunk. You remember how we told the story just the other day?
I don't think that was me. You talked about that.
We talked about it in the truck. I know it was you. You were with me and Nellie, and we were talking about reading the email on the show. There's a person who had shrunk. Okay, well, I know she remembers it. It was me. We were out by the lake. We were driving out by the lake. It was a real nice night. You don't remember that?
No.
Out by the water treatment plant? Anyways, okay. It doesn't matter. The point is, it happened. Look, there was an email we were going to read. I don't know where it's at. I got to find it. But I was planning on talking about that one on next Friday when we come back the following Friday anyway. So it doesn't matter. But anyway, it was a story I had told last week of a woman who had pulled off the side of the road, and she had come out of her body, for lack of a better term, and she was like a ball of light. And this Bigfoot type creature, I guess you could call it a Bigfoot, was trying to reach in and grab that light that was her. And she saw it in the mirror. She saw herself floating around. So we were driving out by the lake, me, Anthony, and Nellie, and it was a really nice night a few days ago, and we were talking about telling a story on that was given to us from an email. And this is what this person asked, if we could just read her email verbatim. And I said, yes, we could do that. But she sent it to us, but I don't have it ready and prepared today. But since we told that story, I do have another one that is prepared. But it involves a Dogman, which is weird. And this one came out of Norfolk, Virginia. But I'll tell that one in a minute. This woman, she was a nurse, and she'd gone through all these abductions, and I'll tell you what this has to do with everything. She was going home from work. She lives about 30 miles from her job. And while she was driving home from work, she saw two green lights in the sky. Two blue lights in the sky. And they went like this. They separated. She knew immediately that it was some sort of, and she was just like, no, this hasn't happened in a while, and I don't want to go through this. I want to go home. A lot of times when these abductions take place, people, they just go to sleep. It's like they wake up and they're in their room or they're on the side of the road. These aliens, demons, whatever they are, they don't have much mercy on you. They just show up when they feel like showing up. What I had suggested to her is when and if it happened again, and she said when, not if, and I said okay. And she said, I said, you need to talk to these creatures. Try to remember. When you're having a dream, try to remember the dream. That's a. Can you open that? I said, try to remember your dream. And I suggest that to anybody who's going through an abduction scenario. I said, try to remember. Here, I got it. Thank you. Thank you for that donation. What is that, Mrs. Chef Yoda? I love your channel. Well, we love you. Thank you for the donation. Here's what I told her. I said, try to remember. Try. It's like she asked me how I have a memorization. And I told her I focus on something, and I remember the details from it. Anthony, you've seen how I do it. Mm-hmm. I focus on if there's a whole paragraph, I start focus on a word. If there's a whole page, I focus on a paragraph. If there's a chapter, I focus on a page. And I've gotten pretty good at memorization. It's something I've been doing for years. I have what's damn near a photographic memory. Would that be a fair assumption? Yeah. And so not everybody can do this, but if you practice, that's something that we were talking the other day about Kathmandu in Nepal. And there was a guy who messaged me and he says, I can memorize anything. I can recite anything. So I got on a Zoom call with this guy, and I'll get back to this woman in a second. I got on a Zoom call with this guy, and he started reading the Vedas from memory. Like he was looking right at me. He had, the phone, he says, and he turned it, showed me, and right back at me. And then we began to talk, and he began to quote the Vedas, and I was reading off as he was quoting it. He has it memorized. Then he started reading off the Quran. Then he started reading off the Old Testament and the New Testament. Like he has books memorized. I couldn't believe it. This guy was like amazing. His name was Safar, and I was like, wow, that's pretty. It's pretty epic that he could do that. But people can do that. There's people that have amazing abilities. I met a guy that could play any tune that if he hears it. And me and my friends, we all met this guy downtown. He was at a place called Pete's Piano Bar years ago, and I don't know if he still works there. He worked there years ago, and he would play in the piano. You could tell him any single thing whatsoever, and he could, from memory, play if you played them the song,
Yeah.
Like you could just say Bon Jovi, it's my, you know what I mean, and he would start playing it on the piano once he heard it one time. It was unbelievable. So there are people out there that have these abilities, but so anyway, I told her, I said, you have to try to remember, try to focus. Don't let them block your memory for this. Beth says, sorry guys, another tornado coming in. Oh no. Oh no. Pray for Beth, please. She's my editor, and she's the reason that my book had that one mistake on it, and but she doesn't deserve to be chased by a tornado. It's terrible. No, we will pray for you, Beth, all jokes aside. So one of the things that that this woman went through was this abduction scenario over and over again. But this was interesting in the way that it was not an abduction scenario that she went through. As she was driving along and she had those two lights in the sky, she looks to her, I think it was to her left. She was on the right side of the, going north, and she looked to the left side of the road and she sees this creature that runs straight in front, like right in front of her car. She slams on the brakes. She swerves off the road. This thing is like right up against her car, and she can't see it at this point. It's below the driver's side mirror. She comes to a stop, and she slides. She's out in the desert. There's nobody around. It's like midnight, and this thing is pushed up against her door. And the horrible thing is that her vehicle went dead. Like it was completely dead. Now she asked me what could cause that. I said, I don't know. Something that can interfere with electromagnetic impulses is the only thing I could think of.
Yeah.
And this isn't a person who listens to the show religiously. She was told about my show. But this was after our first conversation where she had given me some abduction scenarios that she had gone through. But I thought this one was really interesting. So she's sitting there and she's debating about trying to get out on the other side. And then she's like, no, there is, for what she thought was a 400 to 500 pound creature pushed up against her door. And it was just sitting there. And she tried to look out over the side. She's like this. She's like, she can't see it. She knows it's there. Then, as she starts to fumble for her phone and she gets the phone out and starts to call 911, there's no signal. She's in a dead zone. That is not because of the whatever.
Yeah, there's just no signal out there, period.
And I said, well, do you believe that those two blue lights in the sky were orbs? She says, no, this is what she says. She says, no, these were not orbs. So I know what orbs are. She's like, my sister has a piece of property in California, and she believes it's haunted. And she said that she sees orbs all the time. But she's like, this is not what this was. She said these were alien craft who, she's been abducted by on multiple occasions. Now, here we go with this whole, like it's not a coincidence thing. I've said this before. So she's in her vehicle and she's trapped. So she begins to pray. As she begins to pray, this thing begins to move. And it starts ba-boom, ba-boom, pushing against her car. At this point, she wants to scream, but there's nobody there. There's nobody to scream to. And guess what? Nobody's driving down the road all of a sudden, once again.
It's a perfect storm.
Yeah, and it happens. It's like they can take you into some sort of hellish reality that's not our reality, and they can manipulate and do whatever the hell it is they want to do to you while you're just kind of sitting there going like, well, I'm screwed. So while she's going through this, she starts to pray. Now, she's not Catholic, but one of the people that work with her is. She works with the lady, and she's Catholic. And she said, take this rosary. And first she refused it, and then she took it. She's not even a Christian at this point. She's not a Muslim. She's not anything. She doesn't believe in anything. And so Whenever this thing began to hit the vehicle, eventually it hit it so hard that the vehicle, like, it felt like it came up off the ground. So she knew this thing had to be huge. She's sitting there staring, like terrified, looking in the rearview mirror. And then, almost on cue, when this thing knew that she was trying to get a look at it, she sees this hand come up and grab the mirror, like, you're not going to look at me. And then she just freaked out because she said it was like nails, long black nails. It was brown with like fur that started with at the base of the hand. And I said, "Did you get a look at the head?" And she goes, "Oh yeah." She said, "I look over and I see something that looks like a canine type ear." She's like, "I know that you guys call it a Dogman." She goes, "And that's the only way I could describe it." And she said that she sees this canine-like ear, and then she looks over. Here's what's messed up. Like the whole thing's not messed up. People always like, it's, oh, this is the crazy part. No, it's all crazy, but it gets worse. She starts to, hold the rosary, and she puts it up against the glass. At that point, this thing moves its hand over and puts it on the glass, almost mockingly. And then it shows its head. Finally, it lifts up its head, and there it is. She says she sees two big, tall ears kind of sticking off to the sides, but straight up. And she said it looked like you would have a nightmare of a werewolf. It's exact words. She said its mouth, gigantic. She said if you took a hyena, like a hyena's, you know how they have those short muzzles?
Oh, yeah.
And just extended the hyena's mouth.
That's
but
gnarly.
Take the ears and make them more elongated. And the mouth was wide open, and she said that she could see it dripping, like almost like if you were looking at the aliens from Alien. She said it was almost like it was cartoonish. It was so ridiculous.
Wow.
And she said it was just there, and it was just like, and it was like looking at her, and then she said it stopped and closed its mouth, and then just kind of like made its mouth into like a grin. She's like, I know it sounds crazy. I said, no, I've heard this kind of stuff before. And I said, so what happened next? And then she says it gets up, and then it does this. It just starts like dropping its head back and forth on the window. When it's doing this, she said that it's almost like it wasn't in control of itself. But it was. Then it turned to the side and was just going like this, boom, 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 with its head up on the side of the window. At this point, she thinks something's weird, something's off. This goes beyond like some sort of encounter, and she thinks that this seems like there's something controlling this being.
Yeah.
Like it's because then at that point, she said it finally stands up and it goes to walk around her car, and she looks out. She sees the legs, the backward bent legs. She said that the ankles were thin, and the feet weren't real big. She said the paws looked like they were big, but it was like just like a regular like wolf or hyena's paws,
Yeah.
And she said that it almost didn't look like it could be held up, like it could hold up this big old 500-pound body. She said it was about 7 foot tall. It wasn't like a ginormous, but the head was unnaturally large. And the shoulders weren't as wide as we have heard some of these other creatures. And she kept having to stop and compose herself. And I said, let me ask you a question. I was like, when you were if this thing was in the vicinity of your vehicle, I was like, what was going through your head? And, oddly, most people would say, well, that's a dumb question. Of course, she thinks she's going to die. Yeah, okay. But what were you actually thinking at that moment? And she's like, at that very particular moment, she's like, I thought that this thing was being controlled by outside forces. And she says, I was right. She says, I look over, and coming out of the darkness are two beings that are like floating toward my vehicle. One of them looked like it was wearing like a blue robe or something, and the other one was just like a typical gray. The other one had a bigger, more bulbous head than a gray, and it was wearing like a blue outfit. Like she could see it, in the moonlight. And she was very specific about it. And it was holding what looked like a rod in its hand. And so I asked her this question. A lot of people would just listen and go, "Oh, really? Well, no." I said, no, I'm going to ask you this. And people who've talked to me before, been interviewed, they know how I do it. And I said, has that happened to you before? Have you seen those particular creatures before? She says, yes, I have. I've been taken aboard a craft before. In particular with these grays, but this one with the big bulbous head, she's seen that one before too. And I said, had you ever in your life seen one of these werewolf or dogman creatures before, ever in your life? I thought that the answer shocked me. I thought she was just going to go like, no, I have not. And she said, yes. She said, yes, I have. She's like, one time when I was 16 years old, I was playing with some friends. We were playing softball in like Sandlot softball. And she was on a softball team and they were playing softball. She didn't live in Arizona at that time. And she said, one of my friends started screaming when she ran, and they were in a field, an actual baseball field. There was like 3 or 4 fields together. And she said, we just picked one of them. And, back then, she's like, they were open. You could just go and play on them or whatever. And she said that it started out as practice, and practice ended, so they decided to stick around and have a game. They were on a softball team together. One of her friends screamed and said she saw something, and so they all took off running toward the infield, and then everybody was like, let's go out there and look. Let's go out there and look. Now, these are a bunch of teenage girls with like 2 teenage guys with them, and then one older guy who was one of the assistant coaches. So him and 2 of her teammates got brave and went out there. Funny, the 2 teenage boys didn't go. They were just like, they were too scared.
They were the smart ones.
They were like, we're not going. But she and another teammate went out there. When they get to the edge of the woods, this thing pops its head out, like just briefly. It was like walking through the brush was really thick, and it popped its head out and then popped it back in. And she said that it looked like a werewolf. And she never saw this thing stand on its hind legs, but she instinctively just knew. She was like, I knew that was a werewolf. It was not anything other than that. Here's the weird thing. The person that originally saw it refused to go back over there and was already like, she was leaving. She's like, I'm done. So some of the kids, that could drive were already driving off with their friends, and they were like, whatever, y'all go have fun with that. The 2 people she was with were looking right at it, and they didn't see it. She's like, you don't see it? It's right there. They didn't see it at all.
Oh,
They
wow.
didn't even get a glimpse of it. So she asked me about that. And she says, why do you think that is? I said, I think it's because you have the eye, because once you've been abducted or you've been exposed to these creatures, I've had people who tell me that they've interacted with the fairies or the fae. Same thing. There was a guy, we were talking about pianos earlier, there was a guy up in Connecticut who was taking piano lessons, and his teacher, was living in a quote-unquote haunted house. And he said that whenever this guy would get up, he was like, 7, 8 years old, this kid. Whenever this guy would get up to go to the restroom or go get some tea or coffee, whatever, he said that he would see this weird-looking, fairy-looking creature come out of the wall, same spot every time. And sometimes it would go into the piano. Now get this. When it went into the piano, according to Nicholas, the person of this story, and this is something I read. This is not we never talked about it. I read this. Would go into the piano, and then when he would play, it was almost like something would take over, and he would play very well. So then his teacher's like, I don't understand how sometimes you play, you're like, playing classical music like Beethoven or something, and then other times you're just terrible. I don't understand it. So one day he tells his teacher what he sees, and the teacher was like, okay, stands up, and then like, that's it, lessons are over. At that point, the teacher quit teaching him. And he never understood it.
Huh.
It's a very weird thing. But after that particular incident, he began to see things around his house. And then later, when his parents built a house out in the country, he was already like 17 when his parents built this house. They realized their dream. They bought some land and they got some cattle, some sheep. He's like, dude, it was crazy. Like he goes, I started to see these things. I saw these Bigfoot type creatures on my parents' property. Now, he's an experiencer. He's had multiple experiences, and I have not had a chance to speak with this individual. It is something that I plan to do. I know a lot of you who have messaged me, and I said I want to speak to you. I will eventually get to that. I will do that. I trust me. I will get to you. It's just I'm very backed up. When he said that he saw these beings, he said I always felt like my head was swimming. I've heard that a lot. His exact words weren't swimming. He said that he felt like his head was. God, how he said it. Like he said, like his ears were stopped up. Like
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And
Like
so
he just finished swimming.
yeah, like there was pressure in his head. It wasn't. He didn't say they were swimming. Yeah, Beth, are you okay? I don't know if you're there. Beth is somebody who edited my book, and she was just talking about a tornado, and I hope she's okay. But it's really crazy. She was telling me about some of the wild things that happened to her. And if you ask her or my formatter, who worked on the book, to get it out, they told me some crazy stuff, like how much trouble they had to go through to get these books worked on. Beth said it was literally like something was working against us. Very weird. Especially the Bigfoot book. It was like something or someone didn't want that book written. Both books, we had some issues. But it took a lot of work to get those books done and get ready for the conference. They're ready for the conference now, and But this would happen with this. What the heck was that?
Sound like someone throwing away trash.
Oh, trash is out there. That's how it was out there. So what happened was she had this werewolf-looking creature, these two beings coming towards her car. She had seen something like this before, but it looked different. It looked more like a wolf. It wasn't like a hyena wolf-looking creature. People will ask me, they'll be like, why is that? Why do people have these multiple experiences, and why do people... I talk about it in my books, the experiencers. What is it about? What is it about this, about Dogman and Bigfoot, where people have these experiences that ties in with ghosts, with UFOs? I think once you have your eye opened, and I'll get back to the conclusion of the story, but I think once your eye is open, whether it's through, encounters with the deceased, whether it's demonic, angelic, or whether it's through, encounters with alien beings, whatever those may be, or whether you're seeing these creatures on a regular basis, I think that your eye is open. I had a guy who saw a Bigfoot for the first time up in the Poconos in Pennsylvania. And he's living down in Florida now. Thank goodness he's okay. But he said, dude, after that, he goes, it was like we lived in a haunted house when I was a kid. And very few things happened to me, mostly to my brother and my two sisters. He said, me and my dad were the least affected. He's like, then one day, me and my dad are up in the Poconos, and we see, which is the beautiful mountainous area in Pennsylvania. He's like, we see this creature that looks like a Bigfoot. Two of them, actually. Interesting, because one of them looked like it was like a dirty white color. Like it had white fur, but it was like dirty. And he said, dude, after that, we moved down to Florida 2 years later. He goes, me and my dad start seeing all kinds of weird stuff, full-bodied apparitions in this house we were living in. And the other people in the house, it was flipped. They had a few things here and there, but nothing like what him and his dad were going through. And he asked his dad one day, he said, Dad, do you think it's because, at this point he was 12. He said, do you think it's because of what we saw? He was 12 when he saw the Bigfoot, 14 when he moved down there. And his dad's like, I don't know, son, I can't tell you. But I can tell you what I believe. It opened up your third eye. You will see things and hear things that others don't see. You're not schizophrenic. You're not crazy. Okay. I had somebody recently because he said he saw a reptilian when he was like 5. And he was with a babysitter. The babysitter's boyfriend showed himself, full on showed himself. He said he thought it was a Halloween mask, but it was a person taking off their face, not putting it on. He was 5. His brother was 7. Or his cousin was 7. And they saw a full-on lizard, and then he laughed and then turned. And when his girlfriend, who was the babysitter, came back in the room, he was normal again. And he turned around and went like, shh, like that. They said it looked like the lizard from Spider-Man. And through the years, they encountered this guy. And one day they're riding their bikes. He comes out and he stops them. And he was like, I know you saw me. And they're like 11 years old and 13 at this point. And they were like, yeah, okay. Guy's name was Ted, as he called himself. Very innocuous name, unless you're, add Bundy after it. But he says, you know me, I know you. And he goes, just remember, I'm always watching you. And it's like in Delaware. They grew up in Delaware. Very, very, very disturbing. But after that, they had some stuff in their house, like weird stuff. Like they had a statue that moved around on its own and weird stuff. And somebody would say, well, these people are just making all this up. They're just lying. This isn't real. No, it is real. Believe me, it very much is real. This stuff happens all the time. In fact, me and Anthony know people in our private, personal lives that this has happened to. Right?
Yeah.
And they'll tell you dead on, this is real. This is real stuff. Then I had somebody tell me, well, she was like, it's real to them. Okay. So if it happened to you, would it be real to you? I had one woman who I talked to downtown years ago. 2 days after we talked, she had some weird thing happen to her in her house. She came over to the club and she said, you made that happen. She said, nothing had ever happened to me before. And then we talked about this stuff, and you told me that it was real and it could happen. Then it did. Like, I made this happen. I said, okay. You told us you were living in a haunted apartment, and that where you were working at the convenience store was also haunted, and that when you were a kid, you lived in a place that was haunted, and you keep moving around, but this stuff keeps happening. Somebody said my volume is very inconsistent. I don't know what's going on here. You want to check it? So what I'm telling you is we may just have to get new microphones or something, even though these are new. And I said, maybe you're haunted. So when something really crazy happened to her, she saw this shadow-like being. And I'm like, is it possible that maybe you're haunted? Standing there with Squid and Scorpion, we were all there, and we told her that. She didn't like that explanation. I was like, well, it's not fun. It's not a comfortable thing to think about. Fry6 says, I keep getting ignored. Bro, I'm a $40 tier sub. Yes, I totally understand. Fry, what are you asking? What is it that you need, Fry6? I'm not trying to ignore you. I'm trying to tell the stories. folks, if you are, it says if I can share my stories as well, but later. Yeah, sure you can. Of course you can. Send it to me by Messenger on Facebook. You can send me it. Folks, if you want to be friends on Facebook, let me know that you're a listener of the show and I'll approve your friend request, or hit me up on Instagram. I'm Josh Turner 940 on Instagram. That's Josh Turner 940 on Instagram. How's the volume?
Volume's fine.
So what you need to do is send me your stories through there and we can talk, or we can talk on the phone. If I read them and I think that they're good, I will talk to you and then I'll get them from you. Or even better, if you're willing or you're able or you would like to, you could tell your stories yourself. A lot of people want me to tell them even after we talk, and but I do contact people. Anthony, you hear me do it all day long.
Yeah.
It's
Day, night, whatever.
It's a full-time job. I talk at night. Some people are night owls. I do it at night. From the time I wake up till the time I go to bed. If you won't mind telling them, then that's great. For I6, we'll talk, man. Thank you for being a $40 Patreon. Remember, if you're a Patreon member and you come to the conference, we got something for you. So, the point is that these things happen. And if you're an experiencer, they happen. It's not necessarily somebody making it happen. It just happens. You can see it. And it doesn't mean that you're crazy. You know? It just means that they're out to get you and they want to kill you. I'm joking.
No, he's not.
I'm kidding. Thank you for that. Josh, please have a safe trip and good time. Be safe. Yeah, thank you. It says here, have a bad day, so off to bed. Patricia. So sorry about that. Sorry you had a bad day. Yeah, Warren, you're right. You think it's funny until it happens to you. Then it ain't funny. So, Fry 6, you're not really late because, this is an impromptu show. This wasn't, we just said, hey, would you like a show? But I spent so much time running errands for the conference that by the time we got home, I was exhausted. I slept for 20 minutes so I could get a little power nap in and then just. Now, a power nap, contrary to what my brother believes, is a 20 to 30-minute nap. Yeah. My brother believes a power nap is sleeping for 4 or 5 hours. I said, bro, that's sleeping.
Yeah.
That's called going to sleep. For me, what he calls a power nap is me going to sleep and then waking up for my day. And then going off to the gym before or after bed, whatever. And then going and doing my job. And then, I had a situation with one of my guards. It spiraled out of control, and I've been dealing with that for 2 days. It's been a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. So that's my life. But back to Susie. What happened with Susie was very messed up. This creature was like standing there, like looking off into the distance as these two other creatures approached. They walked up to her vehicle. At this point, this creature comes over to the vehicle. She turns and looks at it, and it catches her eye. While she's staring at the eye, the thing begins to open the door. She's like, I don't know how or why, but I decided to unlock my door. At that point, I was like, wait a minute. I was like, why? She's like, I couldn't help it. I was like, was it involuntary, physically involuntary? Or she's like, no, it was hypnotic. She's like, I wanted to do what what it was asking me. I was like, was it speaking to you? She's like, no, it wasn't speaking to me. I could tell that it wanted me to open the door, so I did. She remembers it reaching in, and then the next thing you know, she's laying in her front yard of her house. And it was morning. Now, I had another story like that, and this one was really creepy. This one happened on the other side of a little bitty town here in Texas named Salado. Now, you can look Salado up on a map, and this person was driving along, and they were right outside of Salado, and they pulled over to go to sleep. They got really, really tired. and they woke up to a red, or a reddish, they said reddish, pulsating light that was going from red to orange to pink and back again. And they wake up and they're aboard a craft. At this point, they see this mantis-looking creature with two small, little bulbous head aliens. There you go with the bulbous head again, because I looked this one up. And right behind them was this tall, lanky, werewolf-looking creature. Now, you would wonder what this creature is, what these bulbous-headed creatures are, what this mantis creature is. What are these creatures, and what are they doing, and why are they together? As far as that goes, your guess is as good as mine. But I think if we all start working together, we might come to some answers. We might kind of figure out what their agenda is, or at least why their agenda is. I think that it's very possible if we stopped bickering amongst ourselves and stopped hoarding reports, which is what some of these organizations do, and we stopped watching brain dead shows like Finding Nothing and Dopey Adventures, you might get to the bottom of something. Because those shows and all the shows like them aren't doing anything. A bunch of morons running around in circles. We're using scientific evidence. Shut up. STFU, okay? Shut up. Because if you were really using scientific anything, you would actually have some answers. No, what you're doing is being willfully ignorant, and you're actually choosing. You are literally choosing to not use science, and you're throwing it out the window, and you're hoping for the best. I've seen pitchers that throw baseballs that use more science than you do. You know? It's crazy. I know athletes that know more about science than they do. It's crazy. What?
Just reading Miss Chef Yoda's comment. She said, "We are using scientific methods. Hand me that bat, Johnny, so I can knock on that tree."
But if you listen to these people, though, they say that crap, right? So back to Susie. What I asked her, I said, after this incident happened, have you had any more incidents with a werewolf type creature, anything like that? And she said, no. No, I haven't. But I'll tell you another one. And this one was really weird. This particular individual, this was a guy that it happened to, actually. He was a Boy Scout. And they went camping. And they were in a national park, Yosemite. And they went camping, and they weren't deep into the woods. They weren't far, and they were in a designated camping area around other campers. Right? This young man, I felt terrible for him. What happened to him? He was like 9 years old. He got up to use the bathroom. He had to go, number one. It wasn't like, and he's like, I went over by a tree. He said, I was doing my business. I put my hand up on the tree. He said, something grabbed my hand. And it was like, And he said, dude, I was half asleep and I became wide awake. And I look over, and then he hears a growl, like a low, guttural, He looks over, and he sees about a 6-foot tall creature. He described it as a scrawny, and this was his words, a malnourished looking werewolf type creature. And I kind of laughed. Now his name's Lee, or Leo. He goes by Lee. And I said, Leo, I was like, I'm laughing. I'm not laughing at you. He kind of got offended, and I apologize, sir. I just thought it was funny because of the way he described it. It was malnourished,
Maybe he was a vegan.
Well, I kind of was going to make a joke.
Yeah.
I was like, maybe he's just been, on a diet. But then he was, he was very serious. And with good reason. He was very serious. He doesn't need to hear jokes. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like listening to, I'm on the edge of my seat, and he says, dude, this thing, then it comes around and it's staring at me. He goes, and it had just regular eyes. He's like, but I kept staring at it and they became green, like emerald green.
Every time.
He says, and when I'm looking at this thing, he goes, he kind of turns his head sideways, kind of turns his head the other way. He said, then there's this other hand. He goes, and it's holding on to my hand. I can't move. He goes, it's not like a normal person would grab your arm and it's too strong where you can't move. He says, I know, I'm paralyzed. And he goes, to this day, I don't know if it was from the fear. He's like, but I couldn't do anything, and I couldn't even use the restroom anymore. I just stopped, and I was just standing there. I couldn't do anything. And then he said, finally, it let go, like just went like that, and he ran back to his tent. The next day, he said that they were making pancakes, like on the griddle, whatever, It was like, He said him and his friend, Jerry, he said his friend's name was Jerry, they didn't eat. I said, Leo, why did you not eat? He said, I couldn't, I was sick. I knew why, but I had to know, I didn't say it. I was sick. I felt physically sick. This thing had grabbed me and I couldn't tell anyone. He goes and he finally went up to the scout leaders and he says, I want to go home. And they're like, what's wrong? Don't you like being out here in the middle of nowhere, unprotected and unsafe? Where the bears and werewolves and whatever else can just come and eat you? Don't you feel like being a burrito wrapped inside of your sleeping bag, just ready to eat? Like a fruit roll-up? I'm just kidding. Look, it's not what happened. But he told me, he says, I want to go home. And they're like, we're out in the middle of nowhere. You can go tomorrow. And he says, no, I want to go now. And then his friend Jerry's like, me too. I want to get out of here. They go to their tent. And this was, during the age of cell phones. They were kids, and they're not super old now. But his friend wanted to leave too. And he says, why? Why do you want to leave? He says, I had a dream. Last night I had a dream. He's like, I came out of my body, I think. He's like, and I could see in all directions. And I see this creature crouched down that was glowing like orange fire. And it was a werewolf-looking creature crouched down. And when it saw me, it began to run toward me. And he goes, and I was like bouncing through the woods trying to get away from it. And he goes, have you ever seen Return of the Jedi? He said, my friend was describing it where the speeder bikes were going through the woods. He said it was like that. Except instead of, stormtroopers chasing him on a speeder bike, it was like a werewolf chasing him. And then he goes, and then I realized that I was really small. That when I would go toward the leaves, when I would hit them, it was like they were hitting my face. It was like hitting my whole body. And I don't know how big I was, but I was tiny. And so they told the scout leaders, hey, we want to go home. We don't want to be here. As the day progressed and they tried to call people, they were trying to get signal. Eventually, they had a parent that came to get his friend, and then that parent agreed to take him back to town, and so he rode back in with them. I think what happened was when he was standing there by the tree, his friend had fallen asleep. And when he came out of his body, I think that distracted that Dogman. I think he wanted that soul.
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody says. When he told me that story, I thought, that's probably what happened.
Yeah,
Not at
probably
first.
Let's cut out the middleman. Then don't even bother for messing with the body. They should just go straight for the soul.
There are people, Native Americans in particular, who really honestly believe that these things will eat your soul. And I had a conversation with somebody earlier today, and they were telling me they don't believe in a physical dog man running around, but they believe in a physical Bigfoot, which I don't agree with that. I think that there's maybe two things going on. I don't know. We'll talk about it at my conference. But one of the things I do believe, and I think is completely true, is that the Native Americans almost across the board believe that these things want more than just a physical meal from you. They want what makes you human, which what makes you human is not your body. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, there are different types of humanoids that roam this earth with us. What makes you human is your soul. What makes animals tick, humans, animals, whatever, what makes us what we are is the electricity, you know? One of the things that's reported to us, I know you've heard this, Anthony, is how the lady from Tennessee, we had a story that we got not too long ago. She lived in the Appalachians for years. And she said that when she was a child, she was like 11 or 12 years old, she had this wolf-like creature come up to her window. And when it began to like breathe in, she thought she was dreaming. She thought she was having a recurring nightmare. She's like, she would breathe in. It would breathe in and then breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. And then it would get more and more pronounced.
Oh, like it would synchronize its breath with her?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You know what I'm talking about. And then she said, I remember like coming out of my body and then looking back, and I had come out through my mouth. She's like, I don't know how, but I could see like that I was like this orb of light. And this dog man, or well, she didn't call it a dog man, but she said this werewolf creature was breathing in. And she said that the eyes were real sunken in its head and it looked almost like it was dead. When this thing began to breathe in, she went through the screen and it was like it was stopping her. Now, one thing that's interesting about it is the screen was made of metal. It's like a mesh.
Yeah.
Very old house. And it was like kind of stopping it. So this creature lifts up one finger and cuts through the screen and cuts it up. Then it reaches in very, very gently. It was trying to communicate with her too. It was telling her, shh, quiet, just be quiet. It's okay. Just let it happen, you know. And it was trying to grab her. These are stories I just got from people who, because of what I just talked about on the show. This one in particular. And I was like, check this out. So I appreciate you giving me this story. We'll call her Teresa. And she says, I vividly remember that. She goes, that was the last time I slept by the window. Weird, weird stuff. So, when you sit there and you look at these creatures and you take them at face value, like, oh, I saw a Bigfoot, I saw a werewolf, I saw a this, I saw that. People don't know what they saw. They just say this is what it looked like. It could be it. You know, it from Stephen King that's pretending to be all. You don't know. Because I had an encounter with a creature when I was 15, but then years later, or a few years later, I was working in a building, and it was an episode we called The Haunted Tower. That particular building was very messed up, and I remember seeing a creature that looked similar to what I had seen. But I knew it wasn't that creature. I knew that it was an imitation, an imposter, if you will, something that was imitating it to scare me. So, I didn't let it. And that actually is a lie. It scared the crap out of me. It scared the crap out of me. But I didn't let it overcome me to where I was like, I got the heck out of there. Oh, that's funny. So I was dude, that name was stuck in my head, Asher. Says Wolf, have you received any stories about Wep away? Yeah, that's a weird thing. I do actually. I think I have a couple, but I haven't gotten into them or flushed them out. But I was just like, it's weird. I was sitting there like literally taking a shower, and I've told you this before, Anthony. I've told all y'all here on the show. I'll just be driving along or showering or shaving or something, and I'll just have this weird word or thought that'll come into my head. It'll just pop into my head. It'll reverberate for a while. Tell them to hang tight. Just tell them to hang tight. So that's work. We have work. It's a perennial pain in the ass. That's what it is. But it's work. That's what it is. We have to do it. We all have to do it. I'm not independently wealthy. I wish I was independently wealthy. I'd just sit here and go through stories and, some joker in my chat. How long does it take you to make them up? Can you imagine what kind of creative genius it would take? I wouldn't be doing this. I'd be writing Stephen King-esque novels. I'd be rich. I'd be, Game of Thrones guy, whatever. I mean, those guys are creative. I mean, it's amazing. If it's not that, then I'm ripping off other people's stories from other channels, or they've heard this before because it was on other people's channels. Like I've said before, people are free to tell this story, and they can tell it 100 times if they want to. It's their story. They can do what they want. I think I tell it better than others, but I also believe that postulating on these theories and whatever these, about these creatures, I think that's important. I'm very passionate about what I do. And some people just seem to have a problem with that. They would rather someone sit there and lie to them. And I think some people, like this one lady, she said, you know what? I wish that these things were lies because it terrifies me. And I told her, I was like, the nature of reality and what actually lurks in the darkness is terrifying. It's a scary thing. It's not something that we are really good at coping with. We would all wish that we could understand it, Mike says Stephen King used to be cool. He lost his mind recently. Recently? I think he's always been a little over the garden wall. Yeah. Matt, I'm looking forward to seeing you at the conference, buddy. I saw your itinerary. It looks like you're going to miss the dinner. If you have, and here's what I'm going to tell you, if you're a listener right now and I have 4 people that I am able to upgrade your tickets from regular tickets to VIP at no charge. 4 people, because I was gifted those tickets by an individual who bought 4 VIP tickets, and 3 of those tickets are not going to be used now. So if you're somebody 2 of those tickets will not be used, and we have enough room for people. If you could still buy tickets right now, I think we still have like 20 or 30 left of the VIP. But there's 4 people. If you've already bought your tickets, I can upgrade you at no cost to VIP, but let me know in the chat right now before the end of the show so I know. But yeah. Brett says he has an extra VIP if anybody's in need. What happened, Brett? How did you end up with that? Yeah, Mickey, we're hoping so. I know there's several people who are telling me that I shouldn't do it. There's people that put conferences together that do conferences, and they're like, "Don't do it because you'll screw everybody because then they won't go to the conferences. They'll just." And I'm like, "There's no substitute to watching a baseball game or a football game live. You can watch it on TV, but if you watch it live, I've been to Spurs games. It's like epic. Astros games, Rangers games. You know, it's incredible." And my whole life, though, as big a Cowboys fan as I am, I've never been to a Dallas Cowboys game in my whole life. I've seen every Major League Baseball team. I've never been to a now for Scorpion's birthday. I took him and my brother to go see the Texans and the Cowboys play. But my wife, she doesn't like the big, large crowds and stuff, and so we just kind of hung out at the hotel and they went. And you know, it was cool. They had really had a great time. I mean, you know. And I know all my nephews and my brother and everybody got to go see the Longhorns play. I've never seen them play either live. But, you know, just from seeing baseball and basketball games, there's no substitute for seeing it live. For coming and talking to us in person, eating dinner with us all, and listening to us speak live and in person, and then getting the books autographed and whatever. Yeah, there's no substitute. I mean, it's a poor substitute, I know. But at least if we can get it done, you'll be able to see the conference. You'll be able to see the speakers and what they have to say. But I've had a couple people reach out to me and they're like, "Don't do this," you know, like they're really upset about it. And I'm not one to just do what I'm told by people, and I apologize if it hurts your whatever. It's just I want as many listeners to be able to witness it, and you know, whatever. So. Anunnaki bro, what time will the Friday meet end? I don't know. I can't tell you. David Buckles, good to see you. Corley Cantor, everybody in the chat tonight. When you stop and you look at these cases, if you were to take them all piece by piece by piece and just break them down, you would think, well, let's take it out of context. You'd be like, these are weird things that happen. But it gets even weirder when you take all the phenomena that surrounds these encounters. I talked recently about Skinwalkers. Now, I asked this lady from Tennessee, I was like, when you were young, and this thing tried to literally suck your soul out of your body through its mouth, I guess, is how she was describing it. It was trying to get to her. And I believe that's what it was doing. I said, did it ever happen again after that? She said, no. That was it. That was the final time that thing had ever tried. She said she zipped out of there and went to another room as this ball of light, and she hid. Do I think that they're all trying to do that? I have no idea. I can't tell you. What I do believe, though, is that Dogman and Bigfoot and their ilk have this ability to do things that we can't really comprehend. It's something beyond our comprehension, something we can't understand. It's not made for us to understand. I mean, we, with our brains and our simple minds, no. I mean, it's, you know, I got a terrifying story. And I think this is a skinwalker. And I'll tell you why I think it's a skinwalker. There was a guy that sent me a story. He lived on the reservation. And he's asked me not. Native Americans, I know a lot of them. And I correspond with quite a few of them. And I'm going to interview a couple of them. It's going to be really good. When I return from my trip, I was talking to one today, and he's getting ready for a Blue Moon powwow. or he was earlier. Let me tell you something. This individual lived on a reservation. Okay, and they live in fear of these creatures, these shapeshifters. Everybody had left to go to town, to go into the city. He was all alone in his house. Little kid. He's like, I was 6 years old. I'll never forget. He had 5 brothers and sisters. And he's like, I stayed home. I hid, which I used to like to do. I used to go and hide in the closet because I wanted to snoop through everything. While my family was in town, I would mess with stuff. And my mom and dad were like, okay, go ahead. Do what you got to do. Stay here. And sometimes they wouldn't come back till the evening, dude. Then that's when it really bothered him. He's like, I can't do this anymore. But one day, they thought that that's what he was doing. He was hiding. He was in the restroom. And then one of his siblings knew he was in the restroom and just left him in there. So they all take off. And he's like, Wolf, let me tell you something. I had the most terrifying day of my whole life. He's like 34 years old now. Grown man's got children. He's like, nothing in my whole world was ever as terrifying as that day when I was 6 years old. He goes, I was 2 weeks from my 7th birthday. So he was almost 7. He's like, I was so scared. I went around the house. Everybody was gone. And I was like, I really wanted to go. There was, I was getting out of that phase of wanting to stay there. And he's like, dude, my parents would leave me there at 4 years old by myself. It's not very good parenting. I don't agree with it, but, But he said, dude, I stayed there. And this is what happened to him. His neighbors had warned them that there was a monster that was lurking around the neighborhood. And the way that they lived, they weren't like right on top of each other. They were kind of spread out, And he said, dude, I go into the living room and I hear footsteps. He's like, I turn around and I see this creature kind of like ducking, moving its head, bobbing its head, but it was from the back. And he goes, and I saw like all this hair on it. He's like, not fur. It was like hair. It was like grayish, black, coarse looking hair. He's like, I remember it. I still remember it like it was yesterday. He said, and the legs looked like a human's legs. And there was fur from the top of the legs going up, but the bottom of the legs were normal. He said, and then I heard like a pop. And I see the one leg kind of jut out and pop backwards. Then he goes, then I see the other leg jut and pop backwards. And I saw it kind of lurch, and I heard, and I look from the side, and I see this thing like a snout starting to come out of its face. It was happening very quickly. And he's like, oh no. Oh no. So he takes off and he goes and he hides in the closet. And he said there was blankets and things in the closet. He goes, and I threw them over myself. And he goes, my dad had a knife in there, and I grabbed it, and I sat down. I had this knife, and I was holding it, and I was shaking. He's like, I was a scrawny little 6-year-old kid. He goes, I was always a skinny guy. He's like, but I was real skinny. He goes, I was scrawny. He goes, I was even small for my age. Because this thing could have killed me very easily. So it was at least 6.5 foot tall. And he goes, and I hear it walking through the house. He goes, I could hear it. And then I would hear it go from room to room. And eventually, it came into the room that I was in. And I hear boom, 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 boom. Like it ran right up to the closet where he was at. And he goes, dude, I was sitting there shaking, and I closed the blanket over my face, and all I could see was a little bit of light coming from the closet going into, because that's where the sun was shining in. It was daytime. And he says, dude, I was sitting there, and as I was sitting there, I contemplated my short life, and I thought, this is how it ends. He's like, this creature is going to open the door. It's going to pull me out from under these blankets. It's going to kill me. There's a little child, little boy. And let me tell you what happened to him. What happened to him would have been one of the most horrific things that could have ever happened to anybody. The door opens. He sees this hand, like the door was just like barely open a little bit. He sees like fingernails, like it knows he's there. And the fingernails pull the door open with the nails. A little flimsy, almost like he said it was like particle wood door.
Yeah, like one of those hollow doors.
Yeah, it wasn't not even that. It was just like a little flimsy, like particle wood. You could just break it. It had a little latch on it, you know. And this opened the door, and he says, "Dude, I could see it. I was looking at this point, and I just tried not to breathe." He goes, "I was holding my breath." And he said, "Then I look, and I see it sniffing the air, like, you know, it's sniffing the air. It knows I'm there." It was very, very scary. His name's Stephen. And I asked Stephen, what happened? He says, well, it smelled me. He goes, then it immediately just reached down and grabbed the blankets and yanked them off and threw them. And there I was, just looking at this creature, and I was holding the knife. He goes, I was shaking so bad, I just dropped it. He goes, and then, while it's standing there over me, he's like, it leaned itself back, and I could hear all this popping and cracking. Then it lurched forward and just grabbed me. He's like, I closed. Oh, this is hard to even repeat. I closed my eyes. This thing picked me up. And it took me. And it put me up against its chest. He goes, I could feel, like, you know how when you feel a man's beard, you know, is what he was telling me, you know, you feel, he goes, well, my grandfather, he's like, whenever he wouldn't shave, and he didn't grow real thick hair, he was Native American, but he could grow a little bit of a beard because his dad was part white, his grandfather. He said, I could feel, like, when he would hug me, the coarseness on his face. He said that's what his whole body felt like.
Yeah, like that stabbing coarseness.
Yeah. And he said, dude, I felt it on my body, on my face, everything. He goes, dude, all I was wearing was like pajamas, you know. He said, this creature turned, and he goes, and we just began to walk really fast. He goes, and it just went straight out the back door. Just boom. Back door was a screen door. He just went right through it, opened it. He's like, and I look up, and I just see this creature, and his tongue is hanging out like a dog's. And now we've heard two girls tell us this story. I know Anthony and Tony. Tony's not here, but Tony was involved in one of the investigations of this. She told us a story at R. Ash's bar. Very similar. And this one was terrifying. He said they walked and walked and walked and walked. Thank you, David, for that donation. We appreciate it. It's greatly appreciated. It's going to help pay for the conference. But as they're walking, he's like, I look down, I'm going through like a pasture. You can see it, you know. And here's the weird thing. He said, we walked for what must have been miles. He goes, I eventually got tired. I went to sleep. He's like, and eventually I wake up and it's already dark. He goes, and I'm laying at the base of a tree, and this creature was crawling around on all fours. And he's like, I smelled blood. It smelled like poop, you know, like urine, whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like, and I look over and I see clothes. This is what he said. He said, I saw clothes that looked like clothes of like people, you know? like grown-ups, children, whatever. I'm at the base of a tree. He goes, and there is a hole going down into the ground. And this creature started to crawl down into the hole. And he said, at this point, now this is what was most important to me. He's like, at that young age, he had been exposed to Christianity very rarely in his life. And he says, this is what really got me. He says, God, I don't want to die. He says, if you're there, God, please hear me. He begged him. He said, don't let this man kill me. He thought he was a man. This was a man. And he said, just then he looks down and there's a snake, a rattlesnake, and it's dark, but he sees it slithering and he's like, a lot of times at night, snakes kind of stay put. And he looks over and he sees cactus. The snake's coming out from the cactus, and he's like, what is this? He said the snake went right up to him and was kind of looking at him. And he was like, oh, like if it can't get any worse. Yeah, and then he thought maybe I should just let this snake bite me because this creature comes up out of the hole again. He said, and it looked so weird. It was like its face was part wolf, part human, and it was starting to, the snout was receding, like it was becoming a man. And he said that the snake just turned away from him and kind of slithered under the grass and it just laid there. And as soon as this guy came out of this thing guy, man, whatever, came out of this hole, this is what he told me. He said that snake struck him quickly on his changing face and latched on. It was a rattlesnake. And then it was just, and he said that rattlesnake must have been 6 foot long. It was huge. And this thing grabbed it and started pulling on it. And when it did, he said that the thing let go and then and it bit him under his neck. At this point, he was more man than wolf, and he was changing. And he said the hand couldn't grab the snake right because it was in the process of changing into whatever it was. And he said this snake bit him over and over again, and then he was just like lurching forward, and then he began to vomit like this foam. He said at that point, he looks over, and this is what he told me. Stephen says, I look over and I see what looks like a yellowish white ball of light, and it turned into like a cylindrical shape, and it turned into what looked like a blonde-haired, what at first he thought was a woman, but it was a man, and it just stuck its hand out like that, and he said he got up and he ran toward it. And when he embraced this being, it literally lifted him up. He said it was almost like he got inside of this being, like in its chest, whatever. And he goes, and then we began to float, and I could look, and I could see that I was in like this bubble. And I looked back, and I could see this creature was laying there, like clutching its chest. And he says, I don't know that, this thing all of a sudden just took off real fast. And he goes, I believe that this being was an angel. He said when he was 12 years old, he said that he had dreams about it all the time, but they weren't nightmares. They weren't nightmares. He said, Wolf, I didn't dream nightmares of it. I would dream, and I would see this man in white and blue clothes come to me. And he says, I asked him, I was like, who are you? And he says, well, you know me as Jesus. And he's like, I sent an angel of my father to you once when you were a child. And when he had a conversation with this man, this story really, when he told me this story, I began to cry because it makes me cry when I tell this story. I've only talked about it one other time. But it is a testament to the power of good to me. And he said that man, it was a man who was serving the darkness and was going to eat you, was going to kill you. And he said, people don't know that all they need to do is cry out. Just ask. It doesn't have to end the way that these devils want it to. Those beings have given themselves over to the dark side, and they are vessels for darkness and evil. And I'm glad to say that he said that day, he asked to go to church. They had a bus that would come and pick up the native kids, and they'd take them to church. He said they went to church, and he says, I want to meet Jesus again. I want to meet him when I die. I want to know. And he prayed. And he said instinctively, the preacher was telling him what to say. Lord Christ, come into my heart, save me from all my sins. I'm a sinner, I've committed many sins. Forgive me for those sins and take me into your kingdom when my time comes. He said that prayer. He's like, in Jesus' name, save me. And he knew he'd already been saved. And then he got baptized. And over the years, he said, I brought a lot of children to the church, and we were saved. Doesn't want his name told, a bunch of people thinking he's a great guy, whatever. He's one of those just genuinely good people that wants people to know the word. And I'm not up here trying to preach. I'm not a preacher. I'm not qualified to be your preacher. But I heard a similar story, me and Tony, and then another one that me, Tony, and Anthony heard from, they were both females, from these creatures that abducted them. Skinwalkers. That's what they are. I'm not afraid to say it. To this day, that man, he doesn't even like to talk about it. I mean, he doesn't like to say what it was. I mean, he's like, I'm saved by the blood of the Lamb. He's like, I don't tempt fate. They're evil. Evil beings. This monster that was stalking around. It was just a human who had turned to the dark side. Folks, you have a choice. You can become the most evil, most villainous monster. You can become a real living monster. Or you can serve the good. You can serve God. But you can't do both. And I'm going to tell you something right now tonight. I'm telling you this. I felt moved to come up here tonight. Whatever they are, whatever their deal is, whatever, they don't want the word being said. But my God is more powerful than their God. And their God can do all the nasty, bad things. Even if they take our lives, you still have your soul. And my soul is not for theirs to give or take. And neither is yours. I've been faced with death many times. I had a gun put right to my head, and I was a knucklehead back then, and I was like, go ahead, pull the trigger, go ahead. And I told the guy over and over again to do it, and he was shaking, I'll do it, I'll freaking do it, go ahead. Right there on 5th Street in Austin. And I said, if you kill me, you'll just be the guy that killed Wolf. You won't be me. And when I die, I know where I'm going. You'll go to prison, and then when you're killed in prison, inevitably, then you'll go somewhere worse. So go ahead, do what you got to do. Now, nowadays, I'm a different person. I wouldn't do that. But I don't fear the evil that comes in the night. Because I have something more powerful than that. And I would strongly suggest, even if you're not a God-fearing person, to seriously look into that. Because that is the only way that I know of to get these things off of you. I used to believe that all this stuff was just some sort of physical manifestation. I used to think that we were just here. But when I was 15, I was confronted with something that's not of this world. And I know it's real. It's evil, folks. It is an evil. Don't let these people lie to you and tell you that these are just a flesh and blood creature that's evolutionarily made that way. They're not. I promise you, they're not. Stephen's testimony and others like it, to me, he opened up to me and he says, you do what you want with that story. And I've been wanting to tell it for a while. But I thought tonight, on the eve, you know, of the conference about to come up, on Friday, I thought it was imperative that I say what I have to say my piece, or what I know to be the truth. And these people, they can attack me all they want. They can tear me down. They can say what all the evil, nasty, bad things they want to say. The bottom line is I'm here. I bare my soul every time I'm out here, and I tell you what I know to be real. When other people play games, try to get views and try to get money and try to get subscribers, whatever they're trying to do, I don't know what they're trying to do. I'm not trying to get famous. And I'm not trying to get rich. All I do is tell people stories, or they come on and they tell them themselves. That's all I do. Now, I write books too. But I want a lot of people to know what I have to say. And this person gave me that story, and he was like, you do what you want with that story. It's up to you. And I know that there are people that'll look at me and be like, oh, look at this goofy big dude crying, whatever. It touched my heart. And I hope it touched yours. Because I know that if a helpless 6-year-old child can be saved like that, something as awful as a snake was used to strike that creature, that being, that man, whatever he's become, that dark piece of garbage that he is. And I hope his time on this earth is gone. He can plague nobody else. Because you know how they become what they become. They take the life of someone close to them. You think I'm kidding? Last year at my conference, David Weatherly did a whole. He's doing a different presentation this year. Unfortunately, I liked his presentation last year. I didn't get to see it twice now. I've missed the Skinwalker presentation. I've only seen part of it. But that's my story for one of my listeners that I wanted to tell you, and I didn't think it was appropriate just to come out on one of my regular episodes and talk about it. And I would appeal to Susie, if you're listening. She doesn't really listen to the show, but if you have any time, if you ever get it around to listening to this, you need to accept Christ, and maybe you can combat these things that are happening to you. Because from what I've seen, doing this has made my spiritual conviction stronger, because I know that you hear these stories from people and it's over and over and over again. And when they ask me, what do? I inevitably tell them. And people will complain and they will condemn me in the comments, and they will say, oh, I hate when he preaches. And I was listening until he did that. You don't want to hear about God? Fine. You tune in for the stories? Fine. But if I could reach one person, it's all worth it for me. I know the truth. You need to too. These people, and now in this community, there is a movement taking root that has been for a while, and I've been trying to burn it out for a long time, that these things won't hurt you. They won't hurt you. In fact, give them apples and food and whatever. Let them eat your pets, whatever. It's so insane and so obscene And you had one of the people from Finding Nothing tell one of my witnesses that Bigfoot wouldn't hurt her or her grandson, and to continue letting him play down by the creek with this creature that would watch him. You know how irresponsible that is? You know how ridiculous that is? It's ridiculous. I'm telling you right now, folks, I am not the authority on any of this. But when you feel that as many accounts as I have, or I should, my partner's here too, we have, like, who do you think is going to know about these things? I tell people that all the time. People just want to be entertained. I get it. And, you know, I was talking to, I probably shouldn't say his name, a good friend of mine who's a podcaster. He comes on here sometimes. He pops in and says hi. And he was on Mr. whatever therapist show. And he tells him, I need you to talk for this long and do this and do that, you know?
Yeah.
How do you, like, what are you getting out of that? So these people have to talk for a certain amount of time. And we had people tell us that one lady, she told us that she got drunk and just babbled on for an hour because her story was about 5 minutes worth of material. And that's the kind of stuff that's, you know, that, I mean, and I'm so baffled by that. I just can't understand. I can't understand it. And he's not the only one. There's a bunch of people doing it. I just don't understand it. We have to, as a community, come together, and we have to hold people to a higher standard. We have to do better. Hey, Larry's in the chat. Larry Fisher, Fisher and Sons Roofing, folks. He's a sponsor of the show. Thank you for being a sponsor, Larry, and I'm looking forward to seeing you at the conference, my friend. We have a responsibility. You need to ask for more from the other people that do what I do. You need to ask for more from the people that write books. You need to ask for more from the people that are the leaders at the forefront of this community. We need to raise it all, raise the bar for everyone, because that's what needs to happen. Yeah, you're right, Matt. We also need to stop the separation that Sasquatch people want to be themselves. You know, it's all part of the same. It's all part of the same. It's all together. There really is no separation between these beings. Why do you think when someone is abducted that they see these creatures afterwards or during? Have you ever thought maybe that these beings, when they see you and then you encounter them, you kind of end up on their radar and then you become abducted afterwards? Or maybe they see you afterwards and you see them because after you've been abducted, they're using them to monitor you? I mean, it's just a thought.
I just had a thought, actually. What if there's a spiritual reason why there's so much compartmentalization in the spectrum of the paranormal? Because if the moment you accept that all this phenomenon is part of the same whole, right? Then you can begin to realize that it can be combated. All of it can be combated with the same thing. With faith in Christ.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's. I mean, that just occurred to me when you were speaking just now.
And I don't plan. Thank you, Larry, for that donation. I appreciate it. But you don't plan, like, you don't go, oh, okay. You know, I didn't come up here and go, I'm going to try to get people to come to Christ and save souls. I'm just telling you what was told to me. You feel moved to tell others, just like Stephen did.
Yeah, the spirit moves you when it moves you. You don't get a choice.
Yeah, like today I said I have to do a show. I could have just said I'm going to take it easy tonight, and just pack tomorrow and get everything done, and then, you know, we're off to the conference. We got a lot of stuff to do. We got to wash clothes. We got to, you know, pack for the conference. I got a lot of
vacuuming and dishwashing and stuff
to do. We got to do a bunch of stuff before we leave. But here I am doing this. And I didn't come up here to try to do anything other than to tell you what I had to tell you. One last push before the conference. If you can make it, you can make it. If you can't, you can't. We're going to try and get that stream set up for y'all. But at this point, I don't know 100% because I got to talk to Christopher Jordan, and we weren't able to get with him today. But hopefully tomorrow we can hammer that out before we get going. I like nothing more than to be here with you guys. And I'd like nothing more to be able to see all of you and meet you, you know. But, wow, Ron Yelton. I remember, Ron, when something was going on with you. Ron sends me messages all the time. I'm telling you, there is another side. I died for 3 minutes. I saw the light in the tunnel in the universe. They are real. Yes, they are. I'm just reading the comments, folks. The other night when my wife was in the hospital, it was right after the show. She went right at the end of the show. It was crazy. Me and her witnessed a spirit. A man died right across the hall from her. And we witnessed it. We both saw it. But I'll tell you what I also saw that night. I saw a man being wheeled in on a stretcher, bleeding, whatever. And what was he doing? He was doing this. Look, he was like this, looking at his phone, dude. Like he just came in from a car. It looked like a car wreck. I think the nurse had said, I heard her talking to somebody at the station. And I thought, this man just went through a car wreck, glass and everything else. And he couldn't stop looking at his phone. I was telling Barton about it. It was like, what is this world coming to? Oh, animals died. Now it's time to, you know, let me just look at my phone and going on to Instagram. JC Dova, yeah, probably texting his wife. Yeah, it just looked like he was looking at a video or something to me from what I saw. Because I was standing right there, and I was just like, I was going to take a picture of it and be like, here we are. Maybe he was. He looked like a young guy. You know, maybe he was married. I don't know. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But this is the kind of, it's kind of what we're living in. Something like that happens to you, and the first thing you're doing, or whatever, it probably should have been texting already and had it done. And, you know, there was like what looked like a firefighter that was walking by. He looks over at me and just kind of goes, like, you know, wow, look at this. Yeah, I don't know either. It's crazy. It's crazy what we do. Things are going on around us, and we're over here playing with our phones and doing whatever we're doing. And eventually I'll get around to telling you the other abduction Skinwalker stories. One was from a girl who was Chickasaw. I know that people will be like, oh, Skinwalkers are Navajo. So why? Because they call them that they all have stories of shapeshifters. You can get into a whole what they are, what they're not. They're a shapeshifter is what they are. So if you want to, get down to the, JC Dova, okay, who are we to judge? Hopefully he wasn't badly hurt. Yeah, I'm up here judging him. Okay. He looked like he was hurt. And he was just staring at his phone. So, at that point, I think you should put the phone down. That's my opinion. I'm not here to argue, you know. Whatever. Here we go, right? That's like you said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, JC, you know what? You can go ahead and take your leave. Obviously, you're a therapist, watcher, guy, person that seems to be, goodbye. So, here's the thing. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's over here trying to tell you that if you're texting your wife because you're hurt or whatever, that's a stretch because it didn't look like that's what was happening. It looked like he was looking at a video. Why are you so sensitive? Because I don't know. Because I am. Because I feel like being that way. It's my show. When you start a podcast or a YouTube channel, you can sit here and be sensitive too. Why do you watch The Therapist? Because you're the way you are. I'm not going to call you names, but I think it's stupid. That's your problem, though, isn't it? That's. I saw you making comments earlier, so that is your problem, right? Mm-hmm. People tend to get upset when you attack their hero, and I wasn't attacking him. I just think he does I don't hate the guy. I just think he does a very poor job of interviewing. He just sets up a recorder and lets people ramble and doesn't do anything, doesn't ask any real questions, and whatever you get, you get. Right? If that's what you enjoy, that's what you enjoy. The guy's been on shows, he can't tell a story to save his life. He's got thousands of them. He's got 1,000 people who've given him stories, and he can't tell you one. You know why that is? Can I tell you why that is? Because this individual doesn't give a crap. He doesn't hear a story and it touches his heart, but he talks like he really cares. And you're all lulled to sleep like, wow, this guy really cares. He really cares. He really doesn't. When he's done with your story, next, it's just an assembly line, which some people want me to do. They want me to be an assembly line worker. I'm not. If that's what you want, then you go somewhere else. If you want to be lulled to sleep, then that's what you do. See, people put themselves in positions to do, not children. Children can't help it. But adults put themselves in positions to be hoodwinked and cajoled. Then they have an excuse for every bad thing that happens to them. Right? Isn't that what happens?
Yep.
Hey, Justin. What's going on? Justin Case. Oh, Deborah Crawford. How are you? You're right, Deborah. Absolutely. You can't win for losing. Why even try? When you, as an adult, when you act like a child, then you get treated like a child. What is the passage that says, when I was a child, I spake as a child, but when I became an adult, I put away childish things? It's in the Bible.
Yeah.
You need to really take that to heart. Because the other day, I was sitting there and I was like looking at, I have a couple action figures I still have from when I was a kid. And I was looking at them, and I was just thinking, I used to play with my toys, and I used to play figures, whatever.
It's 1 Corinthians 13:11.
1 Corinthians 13:11, yeah. Paul. Yeah, and when you have these toys, you play with them, and when you become an adult, you put them away. We should, as adults, want more. We should want better. We should expect more. We should expect better. You, the listeners, have a right. I'm not on the air all the time. So what I do is every Friday I bring you another podcaster or a person who's wrote a book or an experiencer or somebody. Because I want you to be exposed to other people who are doing what I'm doing and they're good and trying to do what you're doing. That's why I brought on, Ry Voss. That's why I brought on Gary Brand. That's why I bring on these other podcasters like Josh Nanoku. Be entertained and have people that actually give you some substance. Let's raise all the ships. Because I want my listeners to be insightful and thoughtful and, smart. Be armed. Forewarned is forearmed. We have to find people like that to watch and to pay attention to. Not these people who do nothing. Well, JC, if that's the case, you've been a listener since and you had to mention his name, obviously. Yeah, that's fine. But I don't want to hear somebody saying things when I mention something about your buddy. Okay, he needs to do better. But it's not just him. There's a lot of people out there doing this that probably shouldn't be doing it, or they should do better. And they take up people's time, they take people's energy and their money, and they're not giving you quality. And the major networks are the worst offenders. Anyways, folks, thank you for everybody who donated. Thank you for everybody who showed up. Thank you for everybody who's going to make it to the conference. And thank you for even those who can't make the conference. And I feel bad for those who want to go and can't. And I hope that everything goes off without a hitch. JC, I don't know you personally. I think you felt the need to voice some things tonight. Maybe you were upset. Maybe you're not feeling your best, or maybe you just don't like what I was saying, or maybe you just wanted to question things. It's your right to question things. But when I'm trying to do a show, be polite. You give me respect, I give you respect. I noticed that whenever I said something about people doing better and mentioned your whatever. And he is a lot of people's gold standard in this community, and it's a shame because he shouldn't be. But not just like I said, it's not just him. There's a bunch of them. There's a bunch of them out there that just need to do better. Everybody needs to strive to do better, endeavor to persevere, endeavor to do better, whatever. Red Harvest, thank you for that. Great show. We'll appreciate it. And then I appreciate what does that say?
Blind Hauling with Holly.
I don't want to wear my glasses right now. They hurt my eyes, my head. Thank you for that donation, everybody who donated. And I appreciate everybody showing up. An impromptu show, wasn't expected, but I had some things I had to say. And I had some things I had to talk about, and I appreciate you showing up to hear. And I just hope that all the other YouTubers and podcasters and everybody out there, you're on notice. I don't want anybody to be my enemy, but you need to do better. You need to give a better product to these people. I want to destroy compartmentalization, folks, because that's the enemy to me. That's where we're at. It needs to stop. We need to work together. Enough of this. This is mine, like Gollum. Enough of that. We've had enough. We've had enough of the subpar, horrible hosts who don't do anything. Especially hosts that just let their people come on the show and ramble because they don't lead them anywhere or do anything. I mean, it's the easiest job in the world. Just sit there. I could bring you guest after guest after guest and just let them ramble. But it's already being done, and people don't want to hear that crap. You need to interact. Help them. Don't just tell them what to do and give them a timeline to do. Just help them. Ask pertinent questions. When was the last time any of these people ever brought up anything that was worth a crap? Any kind of solutions or answers for any of this? For your mind. Thank you for that donation. Is that Hazes? Hazes, thank you for that donation. God bless you and your family. Josh and all the family here. Thank you for that, for your mind. You're very appreciated. Well, thank you. You're appreciated too. I don't think I'm out of line or wrong for just wanting more and better. When I go to the store, I want good products. I want better. I want to get what I'm paying for. You're paying for this, even if you're not donating. You know what you're doing? You're paying me with your time. And if I'm up here, I would be, I'm wasting your time if I don't give you what you need or what you want. It's not right. And that's what I'm sitting here. I'm telling you that you should demand more and demand better. Don't give those channels the time of your day if they're not giving you what you need or what you want, including myself. I'm doing what I got to do. I'm not worried about it. That's why I know what I'm doing. When I go to watch this, and you folks are great. I love you all. But sometimes you send me videos and I don't have a lot of time to watch them. And then the other day I said, you know what? Thank you, Tracker C. That's Charles. You'll be at the conference. I can't wait to see you. And I sit there and I'm like, I love the person that sent me the video, and I'm like, but I watched the video and I'm like, I don't have time for this. This video is not doing anything but taking my energy and my time, which is very precious and very valuable to me. I run, 2 businesses. And I do, both of them take up all of my life, of my time. What little time I have with my wife, I got to share it with the world. She's tired of it, It's like I got to do what I got to do. So if you're going to send me a video, it better be something that I can really, you know what I mean? Like I my time is precious, it's very valuable. I can't bring you these stories because I'm not reading them if I'm watching videos. So it has to be something that has to do with work, or it has to be something that has to do with my research. So when I get a video, and the other day, I'm not going to put this person on the spot, and I'll call them F, but they sent me a video, and I was kind of like, I wasted 5 minutes of my life, watching what would have been a 15-minute video. I'm glad I didn't. And I didn't have the heart to tell them, hey, but I'm telling everybody right now, you need to demand better. Okay? Get more out of your time. If you're going to spend time trying to learn about these things or hear about these things, these people, they'll assembly line, story, whatever, but they're not giving you any substance. They're not giving you any ideas of what it could be. They're just putting on a fake voice and a fake persona and telling you some crap that you might want to hear at the time. It's not doing anything for you. That's a shame because you all deserve so much better. You all deserve so much better. You are so much more than what these people in charge are telling you that you are. And the worst thing I've heard too is like, oh, well, this is what people want. You want that because you've been walking through the desert starving and thirsty and somebody gives you a puddle of muddy water and a Triscuit. You're happy because you were walking and starving. Shauna, Eden Crash, thank you for that donation. I appreciate that. You understand what I'm saying? Like, you're craving sustenance. And so somebody gives you some crumbs, you're falling all over yourself. And they're like, see, that's what they want. They wanted a muddy puddle of water with some Triscuit. No, that's not what they want. They would probably like to eat, something with some substance, but you're not giving it to them. And then you're lying and saying that's what they want. That's what they want because that's all they can get. When you repetitively feed an animal their food and they eat the same thing day in and day out, which I can't do that to my animals. I got to give them treats, and I'm the world's worst about that. I give them stuff that I eat sometimes. I know it's probably not correct, but I want them to be happy. When their world is not, it's just the house and then going for a walk or being in the yard. How would you like it if that was your life? I feel terrible. So sometimes you take them with you to do stuff, and you try to show them the world. They're little animals, and I know they don't have our brains, but they have feelings. You folks have seen me bring them onto the show. All of our animals have been on this show. Wouldn't you want your world to be expanded? Wouldn't you want more? Don't you want more? That's all I'm saying. Well, it's your choice. Put everything I have into this show and into the conference and the books because I love people, I love life, I love my fellow man, I love animals. I think everybody should follow that example that is set by good, decent people. Instead, we're trying to out-evil each other. I'm more evil than you. I could do more bad than you. Anybody can do bad. You know how easy it is to do that? Any fool can hit. Any fool can punch and act like a knucklehead or pull a gun and pull a trigger. That ain't tough. That ain't cool. This makes you a fool. Makes you an absolute idiot. And then you're going to come across somebody one day who's not going to take your crap. And then it's going to be all downhill from there. And things can escalate quickly. And then your gold grill becomes one of my rings. True story. Way back in the day, folks. But do you see what I'm saying? But why have to go through all that? Keep your teeth in your head. And just keep your wits about you. Act accordingly. Why say and do and all these bad stuff? Let me tell you something. I used to hear this all the time when I was younger. They would say, it isn't, to me, it's not totally true. They would say there's always somebody bigger and badder than you. That's not true. That is not true. That is complete, these sayings, people, what do you say, Anthony, you were saying the other day about these sayings that people say? There was one that you really harped on.
What was it? It was something saying that people use as a cop-out.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly what
Violence is never the answer was one of them.
Yeah.
And of course, that turns out that it is kind of the answer to some things. I mean, because that's why there's war,
Yeah, I was saying that. Oh, you know what? We were talking about pertaining to leadership. How like one of the worst things that I grew up hearing, and I don't know if it's like
be a leader, not a follower.
Yeah, be a leader, not a follower.
Not everybody can be a leader.
Because the adults, as kids, they would just tell all of us that. Like, and it diminishes the role of a good follower, of someone wise enough to know that they are not fit to be in a leadership position in that specific context, and someone wise enough to be humble and follow a good, honest leader. And that's not what Christ says.
Mm-mm.
Christ talks about the honor of having a servant's heart.
Mm-hmm. Because we should all be followers.
Yeah,
and following somebody that's good, that's strong. Yeah, that's the right thing to do. Like me, I've followed good, strong people in my life, and it's gotten me somewhere. When I followed stupid, ridiculous people, but the worst thing you could do is just think you have all the answers and know everything, and then go out there and fall flat on your face over and over again and never learn. I know people doing that right now. Mm-hmm. I know a bunch of them. There's a whole passel of them out there. I'm a Sigma male. This new, you know what that is? That's a meme that was on 4chan. That's what you're doing. You're not a Sigma male. You are somebody who can't even be a beta. That's how stupid you are when you do that.
Yeah, it was literally just just made up in response to like the whole concept of an alpha male and a beta male.
Mm-hmm.
And then these 4chaners just like chose like a random Greek letter and just and said, oh, we'll use sigma, and they created this whole sigma male thing as a joke, and then
And now all these people are going
and
around
people take
saying,
it seriously,
yeah.
and there's like channels on YouTube talking about sigma males or this
Oh
sigma
yeah,
males
there's
or
one
that.
guy that's on there making videos all the time, and all you see is a bunch of guys on there going like, "That's me." That used to be me too, until I figured out that you leave, follow, or get the heck out of the way.
Yeah.
It's that simple, and I follow people if they're correct. But then when they're not, you have to take up the mantle and be the leader. You don't just go rogue and don't contribute to society because you don't want to be told nothing. But you need to make a decision, and you have to do what's right and say, hey, I want to follow somebody who's not going to waste my freaking time. And this saying, that we were talking about earlier, some of them are so stupid and ridiculous. But it's your choice. You got to do what you got to do. All right, folks, like I said, that's all the time we have for tonight. Everybody, I'll see you at the conference. And, I am one of those people that does believe that there is hope for the future, that there is a hope for our society, that we will get to where we need to be eventually, and that everybody has a place and a purpose. Now, whether it's to be an NPC stumbling block or to be somebody who's worthy of being followed, or to follow someone and do what's right, One of the worst things I ever saw was a guy talking about working 90 hours a week. Remember that, Anthony?
Oh yeah,
Tell him
that
about
made
that.
me mad. So there was this guy. He worked out in the oil fields, and he's a millennial. He's one of my generation, and he made like this meme of himself like on the job site, and it was obviously meant like as a joke, just kind of poke fun. He just took like a selfie, and he put this caption over his head that said, "If you work less than 90 hours a week, check your tone when talking to me." And like, okay, if someone is putting themselves through that amount of work, they obviously they're an ambitious, hardworking person, and that is something to be respected. But then I looked in the comments section, and rather than like people laughing with him, or people saying, "Hey, that's crazy, man. Good for you," they were like making fun of him, calling him stupid, saying that he's an idiot for working that much because he's just being taken advantage of, and he's by his greedy employers or whatever, and he's too stupid, and he's an idiot, and this and that. And I'm like, you know what? These are the same people who complain about being broke. These are the same people who just can't get ahead, and they're always pointing the finger at someone else. It's you, it's you, it's you, it's mom, it's dad, it's this, it's that. I mean, it's like they don't want to do anything but themselves, and they see someone trying to do something with themselves. And yeah, I'm sure that guy doesn't want to be working 90 hours a week, but he's doing it because,
He has to.
yeah, I mean, that's a respectable thing. But there was like almost no comments from any millennials or anyone in that comment section, uh, that said had anything positive to say about it, and I just couldn't read it. Yeah, I mean, like maybe that guy has a family. Maybe he's got a wife and kids, or maybe he's taking care of his mom and his dad. I mean, you don't know his circumstances, but regardless, the circumstances don't matter. I mean, you're an idiot if you think that he's the idiot.
Yeah. So somebody asked a very pertinent question. They said, "Is it okay if somebody buys a ticket just for Sunday?" Yes. If you want to just go to the conference for Sunday, you can only make it Sunday. We can work a deal out, man, like $50 or something. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what are tickets for the regular price ticket, 65.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, we could do something. I don't know. We'll do something. Just show up at the door on Sunday and say, "Hey, man, I'm only here for Sunday." We'll work something out. I mean, I don't know. I may not be the one at the door. That's what I'm saying. I don't know what they'll charge or what they'll ask for. But, I'm sure we can work something out. If you want to go to the conference and you can only make it on Sunday, let me know. Hit me up. I'm not going to leave anybody out. We'll figure it out. It's not worth, missing, whatever. Yeah, Morgan, tell your friend, just tell her, yeah, I'll do half price, whatever, it's fine with me. I mean, whatever they can do, or whatever they can do. If you can't pay full price, I get it, And everybody who's paying full price and VIP, you're gonna get your money's worth. Don't worry. I'm gonna make sure no child left behind. This is where wings take dream. All right. Pooped them. Corn pop. Bad dude. All right. I'll see you guys. Thank you for everybody who donated. The conference on stream, I believe I was told that it should be $7.99. Is that what they said?
Yeah.
I didn't set that price. Somebody threw that at me. I don't know. What did we say before? I think it was $6.99, but then I didn't like that it's $6.99 because that's kind of $6.66. I was like, well, how about $7? And then I was told that it's going to cost us a certain amount to do it. And then they said, how about $7.99? Because for some reason they want 99 in there. But I don't know. We've gone back and forth with the people who are going to do it because they got to get their cut and whatever else. But to me, I don't really care. But I can't do it for free because then people would just say, well, next time we have a conference, they're going to be like, well, I'm not going to go because you're just going to stream it, Like I said, there's no substitute for being there, and I'm not doing this next year. So if you're not going to the conference, be sure and check it out and stream it because we're not doing this next year. We are not. I'm not that I don't want to. I just don't have time. We have a board game that we're working on that my wife has invented. I guess, is that the right word? Invented? Created.
Yeah.
She has literally created a board game with a little bit of help from us, but mostly her. And then, what's it called? I know, BS psychology stuff. I don't know. I didn't set this deal up. I don't know, and then we have the projects that we're going to be doing, and then I'm writing some more books. So with all that being said, I'm not going to have time for the conference, but that's good because I can do more shows. So we're going to do 4 shows a week. So, folks, we're going to see you later, and thank you for everybody who donated and helped out and chipped in, and you're all part of the PRT experience. Thank you for hearing my recounting of those people's stories. I hope that my rendition of it was as good. And so everybody who gave me stories, thank you, and I appreciate your time. I really do. Everybody that I've talked to, you know who you are. Thank you so much for taking the time to send me stories, and then I'm reading them, and then we message back and forth, and then we talk, whatever. You give me your time, and I do the best with it. I'm not like these other people who just waste your freaking time and then get on there and let you do it all the work, which is ridiculous. It's like, to me, it's like those places where you cook it. You cook the food.
Yeah.
No, you cook it. No, you cook it. No, you cook it. You cook it. You cook it. You cook it. No, I'm good. I'm good. You know where I got that from?
Yeah.
You cook it. You cook it. You cook it. No, I'm good. Okay? I came here to eat dinner, not to cook my own food. All right, folks. Demand better from everybody, whether it's politicians, your bosses, your coworkers, your workers, yourself even. Demand better and do better. If we all did better and demanded better, imagine how great the world could be. All right, folks, good night. I love you, and we'll see you when we return from the conference. We will have an episode ready for you on Tuesday.
Yeah.
All right, and that one is about, that's a good one. That's the one we recorded about okay. Mm-hmm. It's a spinoff that happened to somebody connected to the Hernandez Ranch. That's a good one. She went through a lot, and it was based on something that was in one of my books. Okay?
Yep.
I don't even know if I said that right. It's not based on, how do you say it? It pertains to...
Yeah.
It pertains to somebody that had something happen from one of my books that, Anyways, it's a crazy story, and it went through this whole, her and her boyfriend, all this stuff that happened to these people. And bless their hearts, they went through hell. But anyway, folks, I'm going to talk about that one on Tuesday, the day after Labor Day. Thank you. Good night.